Pregame.
Okay. The Bears any good this year? The Bengals were bad for 30 years, so we at least need to have one good season. In fact, I think the Bears have won a Super Bowl and the Bengals never have. If that sounds right. When they had Refrigerator Perry. We had a visit from an MSW professor at the Ohio State University yesterday, and this is the program she was advertising. Because you guys go to an accredited school at Central State, you qualify for the 1 year. If you, I guess, get below like a 3.0, they do make you take the 2 years. So here's the 2 year MSW curriculum at 63 hours. But if you hold above like a 3.1-ish, you qualify. They call it the ASAP program. It's 43 hours. So that's, what is that, 1/3 of your undergraduate? You got to take 120 hours. This is 43. And this is Ohio State University. But then we looked up University of Cincinnati yesterday, and we saw they have to take 43 credits to finish. So you see the difference here. You get an MSW at OSU for this. You get a MSW at UC for this. Which one would you go to? So here's OSU right here. I'm sure it's a good school, but then when I looked up UC, and I always say, I'm not going to tell anybody where to go, but I'll show you all the facts. And I was like, so if I could get an MSW for 9 less hours, that's 43 right here, and 34 down there, 9 credit hours times 700. Which one is this? This one is University of Cincinnati. And it's 700 per credit hour. So you know how much difference that would cost in pay? I think $6,300 difference. Now OSU might be like the bomb program. Anybody here from Columbus? You hear about OSU a lot. They're like, it's the cream of the crop. It's the best school you could ever go to. So maybe they are the best. But when I saw that MSW is 43 down there and then MSW is 34, I'm like, I think I would save $6,300 and go to Cincinnati. But anybody else have another program in mind you want to go to? Anybody want to go to graduate school? I should say that. Because the cool part with this degree is you don't have to. You get a BSW and then you qualify to get a license in social work. But if you want to, 1 more year, you get an MSW, you might double your pay. You'll go from like 35 to 45,000 a year up to hospice starts. I'm at 68, and Molina starts them at 70,000 a year. So that is double. So she was trying to sell us on her program. It was cool. I love that it's only 1 year. You literally start it a week after you graduate here, which sounds like a lot, but that way you're done less than a year after you graduate from here. So it's just like a 4+1, a lot of people call it. So that was cool. So she's coming to speak in my class at 2:30 today. If you guys want to hear, you're welcome to come. I'm down on the first floor next to the dean's office at 2:30. She's coming to speak in Nikita's intro to social work class at 1, but she said this class was too early for her. I was like, well, the early class probably has the best students because they wake up early. Or you guys got registered to where this was your only choice. Is that what happened? That's what would have happened with me. I never took classes before noon. Do you have early morning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday also? Who's an early bird in here? And then who's a late? Okay. It took me a while. I'd have kids to be able to learn how to wake up early. It's because they'll wake up like dead, right up 6 in the morning. You're like, shut up. And they're like dead, 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 dead. I don't tell them to shut up, but I really want to tell them to shut up. I'm like, you want eggs or French toast? And they're like, dead, 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 dead. You're like, fuck, man. Oh yeah, we were going over newborn states yesterday. That's in human behavior in the social environment. Y'all take that next year. But we're still on social services. Hello. How are you? Happy Thursday. And some of the nonprofit and for-profit stuff. So 12 years ago, I would have told you guys to not even mess with getting a social work degree. I was teaching at University of Cincinnati. The Great Recession happened. Do any of you guys remember the Great Recession by chance? Like 2008, 2009, the housing crisis? Would you have been like 8?
In 2008?
Or 5?
2008, I was
3. So you don't remember it. A lot of people lost their jobs. Some people lost their houses. Some people, like, it was just like a financial collapse. And it was kind of scary, actually. It was right when it was the change of presidents, too, from Bush to Obama. It was September of 2008. And then try to guess what their solution was for it. How do you think they fixed the problem? Printing money? That's exactly what they did. You know, because I talk about it all the time. I'm resentful about it because it was fun. They gave us all stimmy checks. Back then we only got $600, but I was like, hell yeah, that was like 2 months rent back in 2008. You get $600, you're paying rent for 2 months, $350 a month usually. But that's what the problem then started, is because of printing money. Due to all the layoffs, the solution then became the problem. So they start printing money off, printing it all hot off the press. They give everybody a stimmy check, just like COVID. Did anybody get a stimmy check during COVID here, or were you all too young for that? They usually gave you like $1,000 per dependent. So the solution became the problem. They're printing money. We all partied in 2020. Just like we did in 2008. Everybody's happy you got money, but it doubled the prices of everything. It just doubled everything. So rent went from $350 a month in 2008 to about $700 a month. And that's by 11 and 12. Housing crashed. Have you guys ever looked up housing prices in your zip code? So I usually go to Zillow. Oh, that's Zoom, not Zillow. If you go to Zillow, Chicago's expensive. How many Chicagoans do we have here? 3? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what's the zip code up there? $40201? No? Where are you from? What's your zip code and what city? Columbus? So 40207? So, oh, I hate when they do this. Come on. So they'll show you some houses listing. Do these look about right, like the houses up there? 4 beds, 3 beds. And the reason I'm doing this is you will see what happened in 2008, because sometimes we'll show the history of housing prices. And it's weird. The more money they print, the more expensive your house becomes. Same with more expensive a car becomes. Like when I was in college, we'd buy $300 cars. Can you do that anymore? It was a junker car, but it ran. Like you buy a piece of junk that had 2 different colored hoods and doors, but it ran and it'd drive you hundreds of miles. So this house was built in 1979. It's currently on sale for $193,000. They actually listed it for $208, but look how much it sold for before the pandemic. See that? It like literally doubled in 3 years from printing money. So it sold in February of 2019 for $99,900. 3 years later, they decided to list it for $208,000. It may or may not sell. And if you go down through the history some more, it sold for 60 and 05. That's when I bought my first house. It was summer of 2005. I was in graduate school. I wanted residency. In grad school, they give you $21,000 a year in student loans, and I had a scholarship, so I used that $21,000 to buy a house. You had to have $21,000 down, and my house cost like $105,000 or $110,000, which was $500 a month. For 30 years, you're supposed to pay $500 a month. So I got 2 roommates that paid $350 each, and that covered my mortgage. So yeah, you see the house go from like.
You don't live there anymore? I'm sorry.
I sold that for $145 in 2016, and then I bought a house in Kennedy Heights, which is where I was born, for $150 in 2016, and 3 years later, I sold that house for $209. My current house for $206. All the same exact same size and like neighborhood and all that. But see what the printing money, I guess I'm trying to make a point that makes sense to you guys. Like exciting to get the stimmy checks, but then at the same time, look what happens to housing. It goes from 99 to 208. Like what the fuck is that?
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like who's able to afford that? How much do you think that would cost you per month if you bought that at? Well, they lowered the price by $15,000. They lowered it 6% to $193. So now it's for sale. Guess how much that would cost you to pay monthly to live there? Is that house close to you? You think that zip code you gave? Do you know that Conover place? Maybe that's the way. Do you know any of these streets? Like if I pick these out, Westfall Avenue, Fulton Court, Delashire Avenue, Wilton Drive, Colby, or Kirkwood, Yearly. So like literally the lowest priced house is $200,000. So guess how much that will run you at a. Does anybody know what interest rates are at? And what they used to be at? So it affects everything you buy in life. That's the only reason I pay attention to this. It sounds boring as shit, but when you learn about interest rates and the Federal Reserve System, let's see. What's that? I think it is 8. You're saying 8% interest? I think it is. So like, let's say here, this $174,000 home, you would put down about, you're supposed to put 20% down, and then you would still pay $1,153 per month to own the house over 30 years. Oh, come on, I'm not trying to buy it. I just want to show an example. But this one was built in 1947, so it might be a little bit older. And then here's what it looks like to buy this house. Well, this is another one. It sold for 2017. It sold for $45,000. That's badass. That's my kind of price on a house. Like if I'm looking to buy a house, I want to buy it for 45, and you pay it over 30 years because that would be at most. Actually, it would only be a few hundred a month. So here's your monthly cost breakdown. So principal and interest around 8%. I think right now they're saying 6.2. I don't believe them. I think they're lying. I've heard 7.5% interest is normal for a 30-year fixed. You can also get a 15-year loan or a 5-year ARM, and that's sometimes better. Oh, it's worse. 15 years should be better. 5.7. That's about what I bought my first house at. They still want you to have that much down, which is a lot. That's why when I bought my first house at $105,000, I needed $21,000 down. And then property taxes, that pays for the road and the schools. How much is rent near you guys? Like if you were to rent something, either here or in your hometown, how much does rent cost? 1,100. Same. And what cities are those again? Cleveland, Detroit. Okay. How much is Chicago rent? Anybody from Chicago? It's a lot, isn't it? It's like way more than. They're the fourth largest city in the United States, I think. LA, New York. What's the cheapest rent you could get if you tried to get rent somewhere? Like even around here in Xenia, Ohio. How much you think rent is?
For an apartment, probably like 900.
Okay.
1,000.
God, that's expensive.
It is, but like, yeah.
It's normal. It's just normal. 12,000 a year on freaking housing.
I say that's just because it's utilities.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes they include that. How much is dormitories?
Sure.
Yeah.
3,000.
So it's 3,000 a year or 3,000 a semester. So that's still like 1,000 a month, really. About. You're only here 3 months, kinda. August, September, October. I guess you're here longer. November, December.
Yeah.
But don't they kick you out?
For winter break for like 2 weeks.
Right. They like make you leave. You can't stay around during winter break,
Yeah,
right?
like 2
Okay.
weeks. We come back.
Okay. So maybe.
I don't think we, all of our classes end on the 8th.
And does that-
We don't come back until January.
Does that include food too?
Like y'all gonna be gone for like 2 weeks plus
Do
the
the-
weekend, y'all come right back.
Do the dorms include food?
No, you gotta get them.
How much is that?
That's expensive. It's like 2,000.
So total all in $5,000 to live here 5 months, and then next semester you got to pay $5,000. Is the food even worth it or any good?
No, the food is fine.
Is it anything vegan or vegetarian? Is that how I?
That's celebrity stuff. I just have it every single day.
So that's good stuff.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, that.
so you have to buy it separate, right? You got to slide the card.
Oh, yeah, we get it from
either or, but specifically like my brother's vegetarian.
Yep.
I looked and I was like, I went to the Wild Cafe, was sitting in line for like almost an hour, and I was like, okay, they do have options. There's more than one.
But it's expensive as hell. I don't even eat there because I think they charge me either $8 or $9 every time I go in, or they'll weigh my salad. So I'll bring in my own dressing and then I'll weigh just the lettuce, and it'll be like. So, housing. That I'm kind of getting to like a normal social work problem. Like we all need some form of housing. We don't live in the Caribbean where you can just like pitch a tent on the beach, pick some fruit for your lunch. It would be nice. Wait, do we have anybody here from the Bahamas? So I guess they're from the Caribbean. But I think even housing is expensive in Bahamas too. We're trying to set up a study abroad that goes to either Dominican Republic or the Bahamas to like study food insecurity in the Bahamas with the chair of our department. DR?
I was on maybe 5 minutes.
You went to Punta Cana?
I did go.
Yes.
I went there before I came here, and
Yes.
then I got burned.
It costs a lot, doesn't it? Oh, you got burnt?
Not like actually burned, like I tanned.
Right.
pretty
But
bad.
I mean, it's more vitamin D than you need for the whole year because I definitely get, so we get a lot less in the summer. That's the number one cure for coronavirus. I don't know if you guys knew that too. Vitamin D, the sun, or you can take pills of vitamin D. Because they've been pushing that again lately too. So preparing ourselves for that. What do you guys think about this coronavirus stuff? Do they mandate us all to get the vaccine still to come to school up here? Do you have to get the vaccine?
No, but it's highly recommended.
Well, that's because the Pfizer pays them $1 million to say that.
Oh yeah.
Let's be honest. Like, have you ever seen the release of kind of how? Let's see if I can get that into one of these. There was something released on how much they paid. Oh, it's a sign sheet. Religion exemption still for the vaccine. Have you heard that? Anybody heard of the like spiritual and religious exemptions?
I feel like I have. The only thing is in the healthcare, they kind of don't.
Right. So COVID happened. Here is like what it did to housing. To pay for stuff in different neighborhoods, it's certainly a lot. I want to see if I can find you guys the picture of this was sent to me recently. And it was how much the companies paid you if you got different people vaccinated. Anybody have Anthem for insurance? Like your parents? So from September to December of 2001, this was just 2 years ago. I guess you guys were juniors. Were you juniors in high school? Huh? This was just 2 years ago. I guess you guys were juniors. Were you juniors in high school? Huh?
Everything I said, like, Diane, and my teacher was like, I shouldn't wear a mask in public. I should like let like the germs get me. Like, I just can't. Like now I keep coughing.
This was recent,
Yeah.
or like since the vaccine, you're saying?
No, just recently. I had to ask
Okay.
my teacher on campus.
That sucks. It's been bad allergies this year. I actually had to buy pseudoephedrine. But this was a little bit shocking to me. So if they had 30% of their insured vaccinated, they would give them $20 for every person who got vaccinated. If they got 40%, they would get 45. If they got 50%, they get a $70 bonus. These are doctors. So all the doctors got paid this. If they got 3/4 of their people vaccinated, they got 125 per person. And then the last incentive, this was when they probably the second shot. As you know, how you always had to get two. This is why I won't get any of them boosters, because I've seen too many myocarditis. I can't even say it. Myocarditis. You ever heard of that? And the research coming out that our natural immunity is good. Is that what your teacher was saying? Like just get natural immunity to the allergies?
Yeah, I just keep coughing. Like everything feels nasty.
Have you tried Zyrtec decongestant? That helps me a ton. I take either like Allegra D, Zyrtec D, or like Walfet D is the generic from Walgreens. But here they got 250 if they got the dudes their second shot, 3/4 of them vaccinated. Yes.
Were you talking about when you're sick, like coughing sick?
Yeah.
Get a Z-Pack. Tell her. I don't know.
Did you get an
a Z-Pack.
infection or like a bacterial infection, you think too?
After I think when I get really sick, because I get sick fast because I'm always in front of the AC. Like probably last week I was sick because I was in front of the AC too much.
Right.
But every time I get really sick, my mom goes, I think, to urgent care or the doctors, and they prescribe me a Z-Pack, and everything is knocked out in like 3 or 4 days.
Do they give them over here if you walk across to the health center?
I don't know.
Or they just test you for COVID and then say like,
I know I don't got COVID. I got tested.
right. That's usually what they'll do.
I'm
So-
not sure.
Right. So I'm getting into the housing issue and crisis and whatever. Cost of living has gotten expensive, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. If you guys were to guess what percentage of income it cost to pay for rent and what percentage of income it would cost the normal person to pay for housing, what do you think it would be?
You're saying like the percentage of the money they have left over after they do those things?
Pretty much, yeah. Like to buy groceries and normal things to live to. Like, I know you need housing, but like, it should be. You're right.
So you said, what was it called?
The Z-Pack. It's an antibiotic. Those are helpful, but are you asking me or her? I said get Zyrtec decongestant because you'll get all congested from that, or just the pseudoephedrine, either Allegra decongestant you buy it at. You do need to go show them your ID though, because I think you're making crystal meth with it, but it works. And you're not making crystal meth, because who here knows how to make crystal meth? If you did, you wouldn't be here in class because you make too much money.
I think I want to make heroin. No.
Because it should be grown from a poppy plant, and you just.
No, I forgot. My brother told me something about, like, I forgot what it was. It was like, not baking
What you make
powder.
on the stove with baking soda?
That baking soda.
Crack.
It was
That's crack cocaine.
Never
So you
mind.
take
I thought it was
cocaine
crack.
and
That's it.
right, crack.
I know. I mean, crack.
So you said 20%, and that's a good. So the standard rule should be it's 30%. You spend 30% of your monthly income before taxes, your gross income on rent. So say you make. Do you guys know what the average income in the United States is? It is probably, let's go to that one. That's a good one. There's also average household income, which is usually 2 people working, and then average pay, which is 1 person. So they're saying it should be 30%. Oh, average income in the US is $31,133. So if you had fair housing, they're saying it should be 30% of that, which is $1,000 a year. About.
Is it still like that? Cause they say 2019.
I know. A lot has changed since then because inflation has been just killer. I know. A lot has changed since then because inflation has been just killer. This one says what percentage of 75's out here? What do you guys think the answer to that is? I'm thinking it's low, but I don't even make that. So it's like you would think 12%. Overall, the highest percentage of Americans, 16%, have an income between $50,000 and $74,000. Second and third highest percentages between those make between $75,000 and $100,000, because you have to in Chicago, New York, LA, and Houston. I think Houston's the 4th largest city. Chicago might be the 3rd. I don't remember. So what is the average salary in the USA? Anybody who could guess? I think it's still $31,000 a year. $59,000. Again, I think that's New York, Chicago, LA, and Houston. Because around here, we still have, what's the minimum wage here in Columbus, Cleveland? 10, right. If you did that for 2,000 hours a year, which is normal, 2,080, that would be 20,800 that year. So if a third of that is your rent, I also have to go to Twitter to answer that question though, because I sent it recently. Let's see if I can find it. Maybe it was the average housing payment. Why do they call it X now? Is it turning into like a porno site or something? That's weird. Because it was just Twitter, right? It was just like Twitter. Now it's called X.com.
Yeah, cause so I think somebody else brought it.
Okay. It has gotten a little bit crazy. So monthly housing payments. I saw this last night. Oh, they're already ramping up the Bengals, aren't they? Thinking they're going to win again, but they haven't won in 30 years. All right, here you go. So this is what interest rates do to a house. So say you buy a $500,000 home. I mean, that would be cool. I'm probably never going to do that, but maybe inflation will bring our salary up. So just 2 years ago, we had a 3% interest rate. Your payment was $2,100 a month, which is a lot, but that's a $500,000 home. That's like a mansion, kind of, I guess, unless if you're in Chicago. Maybe even Chicago, it's a mansion. Or that's the average house. Today, which is only 2 years later, 7% interest on 500,000, you got to pay 3,300 a month to own that same house. It's the exact same house. I guess that's why they show the same picture twice. There's a few other ones because it says average earnings dropped. I'm trying to identify the problem of like income. What's the highest job you guys can get for a summer job nowadays? Like if you work in the summer, what's the best you get paid summer?
What pay?
Depends.
I got paid, I was like, anyway, I got paid $15.
15? Okay.
To be honest, you can
16.
work anywhere, because we grown.
Uber was good. Yeah, you can work anywhere. You're right. I did Amazon during the pandemic. They cut our salary 5%, so I started delivering groceries for Amazon. Sometimes you can make $50 and $80 in one delivery, which was like an hour. But I think the average was like 20 to 30, which was still good. But you're driving your own car, you're filling your own gas, you're doing all that.
So they gave you a man for that,
Did they?
you know?
Oh, if you work for Amazon full time, you probably do. But this is like a side hustle where it's called, you ever download the app called Flex? See Flex. Let me see if I can find it.
That's like DoorDash and groceries,
Right,
but it's for Amazon.
right. I don't think I brought my phone. Oh well. It's called Flex. So, I did bring it. Mine. Has anybody ever delivered for Walmart, DoorDash, Amazon Flex, or I bet the app is deleted by now because I haven't done it really since the pandemic when we were all locked down. If you deliver in the snow, you could make like $1,000 a week. That was crazy. So here's another breakdown of median household price and the mortgage rate, and then how to buy it. So how old were you in 2015? 10? Okay. So when you guys were 10, the average house was only $260. Damn. Look how much it went up in a year. How did that happen? How did that happen? That's crazy. And you need 20% down usually to avoid what they call PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So to buy that, I'd say this is for bigger cities because in Cincinnati, it's about, right now it's $260 in 2023. That looks more like a Chicago price or bigger city, $400. So you need $80,000 down for that, which is a lot. And then your principal plus interest is reasonable, but 5-7 years ago it was only $975 a month. So you see how people are getting squeezed for food and gas in the car. Did gas go up again too? I keep on seeing that happening. Right. It gets bad. So yeah, there was one that just made it stick out the most about housing in general. And I think it was, this is the dude who's in charge of the interest rates, by the way. He's an old looking mofo that's like, he says the economy is still strong. I don't believe him. I think he's lying. Things of that nature. Zillow to offer 1% down payment loan program. Interesting. I think that's because they own a bunch of houses and they're trying to now unload them and sell them. So here's another one. In 95, housing was 130. Interest was about the same as it is today, but average income was $29,000. That's what most people made for income, was $29,000. In 2019, housing went to 260, but average income, this is the number I was looking for. So you said 20% to pay rent. It was about 30 is what they say is reasonable. It did go to 20 in 2019. So we had a good, but we also had 4% interest rate. 4 years later, it's 49% of your income to pay for that same damn house. So like half your income's going to housing. And so that's where I was leading into this movie called The Line, that I often show. It's a documentary. A lot of it takes place in Chicago. And it goes to where and why. I want to get you guys ready for your next little paper and then watch some of this. So I guess any questions about your paper first? And this is a 12-year-old stat, but it's starting to become true again. It's weird how the economy goes in cycles like that. It'll get good, then it gets bad. Then it gets good, then it gets bad. I look at it as growing seasons. Like in the summertime, we can grow all the food in the world, but then in the winter, you've got to stock up for the winter and have enough food to get through the winter time. And then you grow a bunch of food in the summer. So there's these cycles that go good, bad. And we've always had to prepare for winter, unless if you live in the Caribbean. So in 2011, 46 million Americans live in poverty. That's a lot. Anybody know the US population? If you were to take a guess. Let's say it's like 6 million in every state. Times 50 states. Maybe 7 million in every state. Even though I know New York City has more than that, I'm just giving the average. So our population is about 335 million people. So that's more than 10% that are living in poverty. And that'll start out our documentary here.
Sorry.
You're okay. Turkey and Mexico are the only other ones. That looks Chicago.
The line. The place that people at the bottom are trying to get to, and the place that people on the top are trying to keep from going below. They don't want to look below either, but they don't want to see them down there because that'll make them feel too guilty about being above it.
What is the very line in which people face survival or death? And sometimes the person holding the gun is their neighbor, and sometimes it's their congressman or their alderman who's not doing enough to help them.
The line is where you were always in a position to give help. And then for the first time, this line of I've gone from being somebody who could help to being somebody who needs help.
There's a certain amount of pride that comes in, and there's a certain amount of shame that comes into having to beg for every little thing that you get.
23,000 is yearly. And yet I can still see families who make 35,000 or still poor, can't afford groceries.
When you start trying to tell people about poverty, they start making excuses and making heartless statements about why people are in poverty, and they don't even have a clue. They don't even have a clue.
Some of the most prevalent and damaging stereotypes about poor people are that they're lazy, that they're stupid, they don't have any skills, prefer poverty, that they can't take care of their families.
Poor people are working harder, just trying to keep their heads above water than we can even imagine. It's hard.
It doesn't matter if you have to stand in line and kind of feel bad about yourself, that you're a failure. You have to cross that line to be able to keep the lights on, to be able to keep feeding your kids.
You without a house, wondering if they're going to put you out. But the grace of God, because a lot of these people have jobs, have degrees, did everything right. But the bottom fell out. And that bottom of that line, they went below that line.
Is that Chicago?
DuPage County is considered one of the richest counties in the state of Illinois, probably one of the three as far as per capita income. So there are a lot of well-educated, middle-class, upper-middle-class people that live here. There's also the part of the county that people don't talk about. There's about 10% of the population that lives at or below the federal property line.
Good morning.
Thank you. Just have a seat over there. Okay, thanks.
I remember the first time I tried to go, I just couldn't do it. I drove there and I sat there and I couldn't get out of the car. And the second time I got out of the car, went in line and then just got either impatient or just sort of embarrassed and just kind of walked away. Because you just want to admit you're that defeated. You've been brought up never to be a charity case, never to have to ask for help, and all of a sudden you're in a position where you got nowhere else to go, and it's hard.
Right.
And you have a birthday back from Jason?
Yes.
Good. How old is Jason?
Be 12.
Suburban poverty is now at currently higher rate than urban poverty. It's been a tidal wave over the last few days, waiting for us to open. There's a desperation and all the organizations haven't been ready to deal with the numbers of people coming through their doors. Private organizations are a drop in the bucket compared to the federal assistance programs. And so I think there's got to be a partnership. We certainly know that we have a responsibility to do the job that we're doing, and we want to do the job we're doing, but we can't do it alone. We need the resources of the government to help.
So you said 2 from here.
And then one from here.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, 1 box of cereal. Okay. All right. Should I go healthy or what the kids like?
Everyone comes here. It's people that have grown up in poverty to people that had 6-figure jobs, that were running companies that have lost their jobs. So they're at the end of the rope and they end up here because they don't have anywhere else to turn.
I'm 48 years old and I have 3 kids, single dad, got a daughter who's 17, and 2 sons. They're 14 and 11. It'll be 12 on Tuesday or Wednesday. So.
Okay. All right.
I was in banking as senior vice president, making 6 figures. I was very comfortable. Then the last bank I was at was acquired, went off on my own, and started to organize banks kind of at the perfect wrong time and a perfect storm and part.
Okay.
My wife at that time filed for divorce because we were in an affluent town. Kind of the stress of all that took its toll on our marriage, and pretty much that was it. I had to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I'd always in the back of my mind thought about teaching. My mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my sister was a teacher, so I kind of thought, well, maybe this is my signal to make that transition. Sometimes you just feel like you're sending your resume into a black hole. You talk, to a principal or you follow up and they're like, we've got 4,000 applicants and we've got 4,000 applicants. And you're like, okay, how do I get noticed? How do I do anything? Pretty much I've been on my own for 2 years, trying to make by on substitute teaching income, trying to make by on any tutoring income I can get on the side. In substitute teaching, you're looking at $85 to $100 a day, depending if you get called into work that day. And usually it's last minute. You may get a phone call at 5:30 in the morning. For me, best case, if I'm working almost every day, I can make $12,000. That would be the best I could do. I never thought I would be in that position. I was a straight A student. I got a high ACT, it was a great school, graduated high honors. Everything is roses. Everything's perfect in your life. Coffee, always desperate for coffee. You have to work really hard to find the way to get by. The government isn't really seeking you out to say, we want to help you get you back on your feet.
All the bread you want? Oh, the bread? Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm insulted if somebody says, John. All right. I mean, I'm insulted if somebody says, John, you're just lazy. I care. Thank you very much.
It's sort of like being at a grocery store where not everything's been put on the shelf. You just have to do the best you can and hope you get enough that can help you to get through each month. So you kind of put your own choices to the back burner because you just have to try to look and say, what do you really need?
Those are big houses.
I think that there's a real divide in this country and that people are struggling. The people that maybe have, things are starting to look up, businesses are starting to hire people. They're not seeing the people that have really, really been struggling for a long, long time.
You have to make choices about what bill you're going to pay. I mean, I've had my gas shut off. I've had my electric shut off. It's horrifying. And it's embarrassing when your kids go to turn on something and it doesn't work. Most horrible feeling in the world. Kids just don't get it. I think that's been the hardest thing is just to answer the questions. My youngest son would just say, Dad, when are you going to get your car fixed? And it's like, well, when I can, I have gotten used to checking for the expiration dates sometimes. You just got to be careful. I mean, not that you're angry, you're grateful that you get what you get, but one time I got like some Velveeta that somebody donated. It was like 5 years old. It was like a black brick. I'm hoping that I can hold on for at least another year, maybe two. My kids at the age they are, I really want to be around for them, so moving isn't an option for me. I just feel like I've aged so much. It's like a constant kind of throbbing in your mind of like, what am I going to do? I don't want to worry about this anymore, but you just don't know how to stop it. You're doing everything that every person says is the right thing to do, the right steps to follow, but it's not happening. And what if it doesn't happen? What if it doesn't happen fast enough?
I do think that a lot of the violence and a lot of what is going on right now is associated with people who are living with post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma is simply a shift, a sudden shift in the ways in which we understand life and make meaning. Trauma in a psychological or more psychosocial sort of sense in which I'm poor now. Wow. What am I supposed to do? Or the other experience of people who have lived in poverty their entire life, and their mother did, and their grandmother did, and their grandmother did. So there've been generations of poverty, and there is a more deeper trauma, which is affiliated with this sort of nihilism or this sense of meaninglessness and hopelessness that says we will always be this way. This will always be the case.
We're on Monroe and Pulaski, and it's considered K-Town, from Pulaski to Laramie because of the carve-out Keeler, all the case. And this is where I grew up, in this house, with my family, my father, my mother, my 2 sisters, and 3 brothers. My sister was going to play for a church, which was about a block that way, about 2 blocks over. And she was walking, she was shot in the head and killed. Police never came. You know, I mean, they came for that night, but there was never an investigation. So as far as I'm concerned, they never found out who actually killed her. But that destroyed our family, pretty much. That was the beginning of the end of the family that we knew. Just one bullet. We never recovered. One bullet. No, and we never recovered. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that my sister wasn't a statistic. She had a name. She had a family. She had people that loved her, who depended on her for their survival, literally for their survival emotionally. And it's hard for me even to come down this block. It was a long time that I could even drive down this block because I always think about the day that I heard the bullet.
It's crazy in these streets, and it's hard right now to start judging. But when you get enough pain and get enough tears, wondering if God still loves us.
So I go by Jay Quest, and my music is what my ministry is. It's around helping people understand that you're human and that you have a ton of possibility and a ton of potential inside of you. And we need to hear that more in these communities of poverty. People are killing each other for some very plain reasons, because whether they're poor or not, in terms of a quantitative measurement, they feel like they need more. They feel less than human. They feel offended by their government. They feel offended by their neighbor.
It's crazy, it's a world we create. It's like my dreams are rich. It's clear and honest. See God in it's crazy. Feel my pain.
Most of the young people where I grew up in K-Town, they didn't expect to live past 18, 20, because their friends are dying like, you know, around them. Like this is literally a war. They never know from one day to the next. If you're going to wake up and your friend is going to be gone, or if it's going to be you. So there is no hope. You know why they're not so keen on education? Because education means you plan to have a future. They don't plan to have a future. They think that the streets are going to kill them. That's their reality. One of my first jobs was working at a bank downtown. And when I would say to people where I came from, where I lived, they would be so shocked. Really? You lived over there? Because they don't expect people from K-Town or certain areas to be able to get out and get good jobs and to actually look like success. I was one of the youngest supervisors at the bank. And I didn't have my first child till I was 30. I didn't have to depend on anyone, and all the bottom fell out. in one fall, it's just all the bottom fell out. There was a screw. My boot got caught in the screw and I fell head first, 14 feet into a wall. I broke my arm in two places. I knocked my brain into my spinal column. So it's caused me to start having strokes. I ended up having to have brain surgery when I took a piece of my skull out so my brain could breathe. It took me 15, 20 years to finally get back to where I could be up and around. And keep in mind that I had a 7-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I knew I needed to leave, move out of that neighborhood when my son turned 7.
So I had a lot of fun as a child running up and down the block. I didn't realize that I was around one of the biggest drug operations right behind my house. It was a lot of stuff being sold in and out through there. They'd ask me to take something to someone else. You know, I've done that in the building, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just delivering, you know, thinking, hey, they asked me to take this down.
Some of these little boys I knew were bad news. He didn't, but I knew. This house that we live in now used to belong to my parents. And when my father passed, the house was just too much for my mother to handle. So my sister, my brother, myself, we all moved out here to live with my mom. And together we made it a community home, which is what, you know, quite often happens when people are trying to, you know, get out of a bad situation. Right after, about a year after my accident, I realized that I would not be the same. And I went on disability. And disability gave me $1,000. At that time, it was like $900 a month. I had 3 children. They gave me $900 a month for me. And they gave me $122, I think, for each child. Keep in mind, that's to pay my rent. I had food stamps, but it wasn't a lot. So a lot of times we would run out of food stamps.
So these are some of the federal programs we'll go over next week. I wanted to get this one started because this is a good documentary. For a little bit during the pandemic, it didn't vibe as much because a lot of folks got a stimulus check or we weren't having the challenges, but it's coming back. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program was kind of started in the 60s. So any questions about any of the different programs social workers do? Yeah.
My question is about assignment, like where are the things that we're supposed to be looking up for the assignment, like linked somewhere, or do we like search them and find them?
You can search them and they'll come up right away, but the NASW Code of Ethics is on socialworkers.org. So if you just search like NASW Code of Ethics, you can download the PDF if you want, because it will be, if you choose to stay in social work, like a guide for you the rest of your life. There's the English one, and same with like the Dolgoff and Lowenberg principles, like how to decide if something is ethical or not. You can search that, but it's like an ethical decision-making thing. The way they taught us ethics when I was in social work school, they often used medical ethics. They would be like, so you got this alcoholic dude who needs a new liver, and then you got this 20-year-old who needs a new liver, and one of them has to get it first. Which one do you give it to? You know what I mean? Like they make it like an easy question ethically first. Like, well, you're not going to give it to the alcoholic because he's just going to drink through it again. But then you find out he's the only support for 5 kids, and You know, like they make it, there's always complicated adjustments that come in ethical decision making, like how do we do it? And that's what this code does, is guide us how to figure out to do our job as a social worker. Who do we serve? How do we find them and serve them appropriately? And what it would look like. Luckily, it's just a few page papers. So you guys, certainly if you have questions, email me or bring it up to me. And if you cover some of these, it's essentially values you may have personally already, and you're like, oh, I totally vibe with that. And then a value you think like could be challenging to you, like, oh, that might be hard to do. And that's just it. So that one, you still have 2 weeks. I can't believe it's the last day of August already. Didn't it feel like you just started? And now are you already 3 weeks in? Did you guys got 3 weeks done? So we'll watch the rest of the line next week, but it's generally 4 stories that go about 10 minutes each. You've seen the first 2, and just what it looks like to make it through. I think there's one more stat after this. So 71% of all supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits go to households with children. And average food stamp is $21 a week. So it's not, but you think if you went to Walmart, could you survive off $21 a week now? Is there a way to buy cheap food that $21 a week would do? Yes. Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like maybe rice and beans, like if you went super duper cheap, but that's even expensive now. What's that?
I think I can do it.
Right. I know some people do the challenge. Like when I was in social work school, I think there's this book called Nickel and Dimed, and there was somebody who lived back then. The minimum was either $5 or $8 an hour. And she literally tried to live off that $8 an hour and wrote a book about it. So there's a lot of people that have tried it. Some have succeeded, but you like live almost like a Buddhist monk or like a Catholic nun, where you just like do nothing but eat, sleep, live, work, crash at your house. So you're not going to movies, going to baseball games, or hanging out. So it's different. I think some folks get $200 a month now, is kind of, which is still only about $50 a week. So could you do it on $50 a week? $50.
A lot of people like a lot of that food, because I know a guy when I was like in elementary and middle school, he has like 11 siblings. So I'm just saying, like, if he could probably do it, because I'm saying I don't think your parents are rich. My kids like that.
Right.
And I think I could.
Right.
Me by myself, I mean with my brother and my mom.
So I wonder if they gave them 21 a week for each kid, if it was, you said 13 or 11?
Yeah.
So 200 a week, maybe 800 a month. You just have to be crafty. Like you buy on the sales, you buy on the stuff that's discounted, and try not to eat out. I think there's some places, like I started noticing gas stations, they'll sell a pizza and you can buy it on food stamps. Do they still do that? Where you could like buy it on Hungry Brothers Pizza or one of them places where like they would take food stamps at the gas station, and then the pizza, some of the pre-made food was taken, but not much eaten out, I guess, is where I'm going. I think there's one other. Okay, so she got her kids through school,
Giving my children home.
private school,
That's the hard part, because they went to a private.
but then you got to pay for the lunches. So it's like there's always something that's. I know during the pandemic they tried to do poverty aversion. We even started a food pantry on the 3rd floor in the social work department. So in 311, we have a food pantry. We try to take donations and give stuff out. So when you got a little extra, you give it. If you need something, come up for lunch and take it. We've got it up there. It's room 311 Wesley. And we just got fresh stuff last week. So that's nice. And we're doing some research on the food desert in here, Wilberforce, Ohio. Like there ain't crap to buy around Wilberforce, right? Is there anywhere to buy food? Anywhere? Walmart 3 miles away, you got to go to Xenia, that's it. Taco Bell, is that Xenia? It's all in Xenia. So like even if you had a bike, I mean, I could walk 3 miles, but it takes an hour. I could run it, but it takes a half an hour. And then if I bike it, it might take. Yeah. Here, Grubhub, because you get a free complimentary membership with Amazon, I think. So with your Central State account, you guys get Amazon Student Prime for 6 months free, right? Have you done that yet? So you use your .edu account, and then it also gives you access to Grubhub, which is free delivery. So sometimes they have a sale on food that's good, but here's what I bought for congestion. I think it was during this bad allergy season, Amazon does deliver. Will they deliver to campus? Like, if you buy stuff, they have something. Okay. So the one that I bought, maybe it was decongestant. Well, they have that one. That's kind of helpful, the little red pills, but I think even better is the orange ones and the blue ones right here. That's the one that I got. So then at night I'll take the blue, and then I don't have like the sinus infection. For the next few weeks, we'll have all the fall allergies like goldenrod.
Cut the grass every other
Yes.
day, like-
Well, they have like 300 acres, and it's annoying. And anytime I hear them over here, I like walk way over that way and go where I'm going to avoid them. This is the only thing, along with some of them red pills, and then I think Zyrtec. And they have like a generic brand of it. You can buy it because that's expensive. But if you buy like the Amazon brand of it, probably that one, it's a little bit cheaper. And that's my cocktail. Like that's mostly what I take, and it gets me through the day. But cetirizine, that's what it's called. So if you're looking, oh yeah, and then I have to do the sinus rinse. You squirt that neti pot through your nose. You guys ever heard of that? Or Navage, nasal. And that way you don't get like the bacteria that accumulates and then gets infected to cause an infection. But it works. And I buy the cetirizine. 200 will last you like a half a year, so that's nice. But any other questions? I'll try to keep this paused right there because that's what we'll start up on Tuesday. Wait, do we have a 3-day weekend? Oh, damn. That's why it's a party weekend. Anybody going to Riverfest in Cincinnati? Same difference or better? Chicago Cubs are coming to Cincinnati.
Street people.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Who is driving the furthest this weekend?
Huh?
3 hours.
Cleveland? That's pretty far.
Did you
Detroit?
leave it in the other group chat? You didn't go like right now. You said come back.
Chicago?
Right.
How much is the bus ticket?
You gotta go to the.
They still have that like community bus where it's only like,
I gotta go to my dorm.
Are you talking about RTA?
You can walk.
I think so.
It's right there.
I didn't realize that.
I took the Greyhound into Mexico once. Will you guys be safe this weekend? Enjoy your weekend. Don't party too hard that you don't come back. Oh yeah, who's got the attendance sheet? It's probably right here. Okay.
No.